We need to become introspective. Frankly speaking, we are holding Nigeria back. We're a distraction to Nigeria. Nigeria is squandering too much money on northern Nigeria. And if northerners cannot solve their problem, is it somebody from the west, southwest, or from the southeast, or from the south-south that will come and solve our problem? We need to solve our problem. Our problem is not about getting the presidency. In fact, we should forego the presidential spot for the next 4 elections. We should go back. Our problem is at the state level, our governors. But then the irony, Your Excellency, is our political leaders tend to see us as their subjects. You are an academic of high repute. I have read quite a few of your readings. I'm from Ukul, Undo, and so on and so forth. I lived almost all my life in Ashaka Cement, so I am from Gombe State, technically speaking. Our leaders see us as their subjects, not as citizens. So every problem you see in the north, be it the banditry issue, be it criminality, be it insurgency, is an inorganic migration.
I can tell you, for some of us that are a little bit older, approaching 70, my senior brother, the Sarki is much, maybe up to, already has passed the 70 mark. Just Ambassador Baraya is about my age, in our late 60s. But we want to tell you that leadership does not come on the platter of gold. We don't hand it over to you. It was not handed over to us. It was sheer hard work and sometimes being at the right place.
A little bit uncomfortable, and I try to tell the older ones to be a little bit cautious with this statement, because this statement could incite disruptive activities that could become counterproductive to the future that we seek to build. Captain Traore, who is a youth, took power that was not given to him on a platter, as did Goita, as did Mamadi, etc., etc. So I think what the older generation needs to be doing, or maybe my own generation, which is the end of their generation, is to begin to recount that power is not given rhetoric that I grew up with. Maybe we should say power is not given, power is taken, but responsibly so. I thought I should just take that out of my mind. Then the second issue, again, and I'm glad my younger brother mentioned a word that is very dear to me, exclusionism. As long as it is the elite talking to the elite, trying to understand a problem from the perspective of the elite to provide a solution that the elite will never encounter because they do not know the problem, then the problems will persist. Lack of inclusion, lack of inclusivity, whether social inclusion, political inclusion, not necessarily financial inclusion, is the bane of our existence, and it is what has put us on this dangerous trajectory where we have all sorts of deviant behavior that inadvertently have been triggered by our own processes of exclusionism. If you take the case of Al-Jawlani, now he calls himself Al-Shara, the president of Syria. This man was in Al-Qaeda, then he was in ISIS, and then now he's in the White House. And he's in his, 30s? And he was asked, why did you join a terrorist group? And I keep saying this, his answer is so profound, so simple it escapes all of us perhaps. And he said, I was old enough to participate in the political process, but there was no space for me. But look at how he went full circle. So perhaps if that space had been provided for him, he wouldn't have gone through what he did to be where he is, because this is where he intended to be. If you take the case of Mukhtar Robo, Sheikh Robo, Abu Mansour, who was second in command in Al-Shabaab, Al-Shabaab al-Afriqiya, Al-Shabaab in Somalia, who was as wanted as Al-Shara was wanted, came out, defected to the government, 2 years under house arrest, literally 2 days after he was integrated into the government of Somalia as Minister of Religious Affairs and Hajj Endowment. So again, if that process or system of deliberate exclusionism is not there, perhaps Abu Mansur would have been in the government ad initio, not caused the chaos that he did, not caused the funds that could have gone into other processes. Lastly, I will give an example with Muhammad Yusuf. Muhammad Yusuf also advocated for participatory politics for youth inclusivity, just as Saadu Zunguru did when he was in ABU's area. He was the first to openly call for the participation of the youth in politics so that the youth can have a say in their collective future. So I think we need to do two things. I recall when I was in the parliament, I hate speaking about when I used to be, when I was. That's a deliberate signal that one is old. I was in National Assembly in my 30s also, but I remember when the not too young to run movement started. And I said, Nigeria has always had a not too young to run policy. The Honorable Minister here benefited from it, as did many of our leaders, some alive, some not alive. Tambuwal, my speaker, was a member of House of Reps at what age? Salisu Buhari was speaker at what age? So there has always been not too young to run. But what we must have, and this young Shagari I'm talking to you, envy, and there must be a deliberate influence on policy for not too poor to run. As long as participatory politics is expensive, you are excluding 99% of those who would otherwise solve this problem the right way, and they might otherwise go and create the problem, another problem for you in your future. Second issue, again, remember I will be 50 in January 19th, and I have 7 children, 6 daughters, so by every indices, I'm old. So traditionally, I should have started the process of handing over the baton at 40. If you go back to scripture, right? 60 or 70, go back to the Bible, 3 scores maximum plus 10, so 70. So I should have started the process of handing over the baton at 40. But be that as it may, here I am at 50, still occupying a podium with the youth. I still insist and maintain a 70-year-old has no business planning for a future he will definitely not live long enough to see. There's absolutely, this is common sense. I mean, to be 70 and be vying for office actually is to almost be cheeky in the sight of the Creator. At that age, one should begin to, you have gotten the ticket, you have the boarding pass, they have announced the arrival of the aircraft. Maybe something will happen, but you are definitely at the departure lounge. Then the youth. Again, this is a brilliant initiative. This is very noble from a religious perspective, from a social perspective, from every perspective. Implementation. Here we are again speaking in an echo chamber. There is a nice bottled water here and a nice drink for me, but we are talking about people who will drink the dirtiest water, people who may never see electricity, people who may never have the opportunity to see the special advisor to the president, office of the vice president, unless he's going to run for governor and then he's campaigning, then perchance they will meet. So I would think this integration we are talking about should not be horizontal, it should be vertical. I think we need to go back down to the lowest levels of society to ensure that inclusion happens organically. The non-for-profit organizations that you are keen in are those that are owned by the people, not controlled by people in capitals, but owned and controlled and run by the people in the lowest levels of society. I agree with the Honorable Minister, former Minister, Special Advisor. Where there's a will, there's a way. But also I will go back to scripture. He talked about opportunity, preparedness, timing, and so on. Even the Creator himself said it. Before something happens, 2 things must meet. Opportunity must meet preparedness. So you ask yourself, what is better? To have the opportunity and you are not prepared? Or to be prepared while waiting for the opportunity? I would say the latter. So the youth need to rise up, and you need to understand that at 30 you are old. At 30, you are not young. They are only deceiving you because of the paternalistic societies that we live in, where as long as your father is alive, you are young. Or as long as your father's age mate is running for opposition, it will be impudent of you to run for that position. And this is why you see the Senate, it has become a retirement home for people who have already collected the boarding pass. But at 30, if you are going to live to be 60, you have lived 50% of your life. The remaining 30, you will squander time. You will be industrious for another 7. This is purely mathematical. The remaining 13, you will not know where they went to. So at 30, you are old, and you need to begin to start to think as an older person, not as a young person. So when I hear young parliamentarians talking in their 30s, I laugh. Again, Your Excellency, Salisu Buhari was speaker at what age? At what age was Gowon president? What age is the president of Senegal? What age again is the president, whether military or otherwise, of Burkina? So we need to be pragmatic in how we define these things. We need to be absolutely honest and circumspect in how we view ourselves. Our problem, I think, again, even me, I'm included in this, is we like to see ourselves with other people's eyes. We hardly ever look at ourselves with our own eyes. So perhaps if we did, then what the former minister mentioned, how we created Abuja in 50 years from nothing. Perhaps we should not even be celebrating that. We should be celebrating we created Abuja in 20 years or 25 years, so that the generation that was born before Abuja was created were there at 25 when Abuja became a livable city. We need to task ourselves. We need to know ourselves. We need to love ourselves. We need to build bridges. So again, I'd like to see NVN, taken down to the primary school levels, where just like you had the Boy Scouts and so on and so forth, begin to create these pockets of inclusion so that you can begin to influence the trajectory of thought. No nation develops accidentally. For a nation to develop and to prosper, there must be elite consensus. Nigeria does not have elite consensus. It may never have elite consensus. I'm a failed politician, and proudly so. Nigeria may never have elite consensus, and this is the bane of the existence of Nigeria. So, two things. If the elite cannot build consensus, as evidenced by the debacle in Kano, where you have two brothers contesting for a throne that is over 1,000 years old, and nobody has been able to reconcile them to the collective shame of northern Nigeria. Does that mean we don't have anybody that can bring people to order? So, one, you need to be certain of what you're doing. You need to be honest. You need to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And we need to learn to talk to each other, not at each other. And sometimes we need to leave the politics aside. If we, again, the elite, don't form the consensus that is needed to move Nigeria forward, those that we seek to govern will form their own consensus, and then the danger is, because of unmitigated anger and miscalibrated energies, then you would have the French Revolution, and all the indices are there. So we need to do that. Then, number two, the older generation need to know that there comes a time when you should bow out. A father and a son cannot be, it is an aberration in our culture for a father and a son to be occupying the same space, running for office. Why? His Excellency said it's not, politics is not just about vying for office. I totally agree. There is politics, and then there is being political. The two are unfortunately imploded into one in Nigeria. Just as there's a dichotomy between a politician and an aspirant. Classic example, President Muhammad Buhari, may Allah forgive him his sins, was an aspirant. It took politicians to build consensus to bring him in. So the politician sets the agenda. Our tragedy in northern Nigeria especially is 1999, when military rule ended. The traditional politicians did not believe that the military have really handed over. So they did not participate in participatory politics. So charlatans, misguided youth, etc., took up the chance, and because fortune favors the bold, got into office. So all of a sudden they have youth on their side, they have energy, they have political power, they have wealth. So they became the politician and the aspirants and set the agenda for themselves by themselves, and this is part of the tragedy we are still facing. So the North, again, when I say the North here, I mean geographic North. I don't mean the other types of northern Nigeria that we have. You know, when it suits us, the North is geographic. When it suits us, the North is ethnic or religious. So I'm speaking the North, a geographic North. We need to become introspective. Frankly speaking, we are holding Nigeria back. We're a distraction to Nigeria. Nigeria is squandering too much money on northern Nigeria. And if northerners cannot solve their problem, is it somebody from the west, southwest, or from the southeast, or from the south-south that will come and solve our problem? We need to solve our problem. Our problem is not about getting the presidency. In fact, we should forego the presidential spot for the next 4 elections. We should go back. Our problem is at the state level, our governors. But then the irony, Your Excellency, is our political leaders tend to see us as their subjects. You are an academic of high repute. I have read quite a few of your readings. I'm from Ukul, Undo, and so on and so forth. I lived almost all my life in Ashaka Cement, so I am from Gombe State, technically speaking. Our leaders see us as their subjects, not as citizens. So every problem you see in the North, be it the banditry issue, be it criminality, be it insurgency, is an inorganic migration from subjecthood to citizenhood. And unless we agree that we no longer have subjects in the north. We have citizens where my children, your children have the same rights as the children of the people in the village. Your Excellencies, this problem will only continue. So I will conclude by talking about my core competence, which is security, and I saw peace building. About will give birth to youth that are also weaponized, who will give birth to another set of youth that are also weaponized. So we are talking about Gen Z. When we say Gen Z, we think of Gen Z, maybe they're in their teens or 20s. They're in their 30s. Gen Alphas are already 11, 12. We're beginning to think of Gen Beta. And Gen Alpha are a different human being altogether. We have never seen anything like that. Which is why they tend to look alike. Which is why short parents will give birth to tall children. The way they think is different. Your Excellency, you mentioned AI. These people are actually AI. I don't believe they are really AI. So if we don't begin to give them responsible parenting, where the father must play the role of the father, the mother must play the role of the mother, so that the children can play their role as children. Unless we move from individualism to collectivism, which is what we had before, both as Africans, as Nigerians, and as adherents of faith, unless we do these things, Your Excellency, when the moral pool is corrupt from the home, they give birth to every type of corruption, financial, whatever. It starts from the family. So we need to champion responsible parenting. Your Excellency, it is an adage in Gondi. I'm so sorry, sir, I'm not picking on you, but you're my older brother and I haven't seen you in a very long time. When somebody would come back, this is a live example, by the way, from customs in Lagos and comes back to Jubba, in Funakai, and brings a bag of rice and 2 chickens, and the father would ask him, do you have ablution? If you say no, he will say, go and perform ablution. After performing the ablution, the father will say, here's the Quran. Swear on the Quran that what you are giving me is from your legitimate earnings. This is who we used to be. When Grima, Allah was at the end of Ashaka died, I was little then, he left 200 million naira in his bank account. I remember Blue Circle Industries in the United Kingdom, in London, like His Excellency mentioned, it was in the newspapers, perhaps the richest civil servant to have ever lived. His father refused to accept 1 kobo from that 200 million. He insisted that it is impossible for his son to have amassed such wealth. This is where we are coming from, Your Excellency. If you talk about Borno State, the kind of Borno Empire, some German anthropologist wrote, I can't remember what century, and he said, during the peak of this great empire, this great civilization, he read out the size in square kilometers. He said, and I quote, a young lady, then he rephrased, a comely young lady of not more than 16 could traverse the length and breadth of this great empire, naked, draped in gold from head to toe, without the fear of anyone or anything, with only the fear of creator in her mind. This is where we are coming from. And this is doable. Again, it is achievable. I conclude by saying, you have your work cut out for you. It is achievable, it is doable, but there has to be sacrifices made. When I was very little, 8 or 9, my father, God rest his soul, who was a philosopher, told me, Aliyu, for Nigeria to be course-corrected, we would need at least 2 generations that would sacrifice themselves, earn nothing, do nothing, become married to Nigeria. Then Nigeria could course-correct. This, if I say, let's say I was 10 years old, that's 40 years ago, 2 generations. My dear brothers and sisters, how many generations do we need now to course-correct Nigeria? As long as 2 things are weaponized, Your Excellency, rent and school fees, the youth are broken. You are too busy looking for money to pay rent, just as you have paid rent, especially now, end of the year and January. Just as you have paid rent, before you heave a sigh of relief, it is school fees. So when you're occupied with these problems, how can you build and sustain momentum? This is why the politicians, they know this. If this was a political gathering, there will be 2,000 people here. There will be envelopes, there will be bags, there will be banners, there will be t-shirts. And the moment you begin to gain traction and momentum, which I believe you will, the politicians will come calling. So as long as you will accept hygiene money, money in envelope with the leaders having meetings in the Hilton, in Asokoro, etc., they will break your ranks. I say we, I include myself, we are exceptionally competent in doing this. And this is why whenever there is any problem in Nigeria, the elite response is to procure the solution. School children are kidnapped. We are not talking about dominance of violence to go with violence to bring back our children. No, we procure a solution. So we are good at resolving problems, but we are yet to solve any problems. I thank you very much, and I make myself available whenever you need me.
To be allowed to speak as the chair of this occasion. Now, any program or any event that has the young in mind and in focus is very dear to us and very important to all of us, particularly we, the older generation here, because it's a moment of, so to speak, passing the baton. Already, I think that is beginning to happen in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, where the new generation is beginning to emerge to lead the affairs of this country and the continent at large. Now, what does that entail? And we can tell you, for some of us that are a little bit older, approaching 70, my senior brother, the Sarki is much, maybe up to, already has passed the 70 mark. Just Ambassador Baraya is about my age, in our late 60s. But we want to tell you that leadership does not come on the platter of gold. We don't hand it over to you. It was not handed over to us. It was sheer hard work and sometimes being at the right place at the right time. Even though I think it was Edison or Einstein that said, success, whenever you see success in people, is 99% perspiration, 1% luck. So no matter what opportunity you have, or how connected you are, or the right, you still have to work hard. The gentlemen in uniform here know the grills that they went through before attaining the position that they have attained. So hard work, more hard work, and more hard work. Then number 4 will be being at the right time and seizing that moment. So what I want to say is that you have to be out there. Get it from us. We're already tired. You see us coming late for meetings. We don't used to be like this before. In the past, we would be here very early in the morning, excited that there's an occasion. But now we are tired, seriously. And we keep this recital because basically, and I even lately have begin to feel that one of the greatest Malay in Nigeria is, and Africa maybe at large, in certain countries, is not even the vices that we hear, corruption, this and that. It's more of incompetence, lack of competencies. Lack of competencies. So when you go to other countries, the reason why you see them accelerating is because there's competencies, and then they even go beyond, because then they start thinking of new ideas. When I was Minister of Abuja, for some of you that may remember, it's been over close to 20 years now that I left. I came purely on vision because I was much younger and I thought I could build the boulevards in Abuja, build the central business district, so that we have a replication of what we see when we go out of the country. London, Paris, Dubai, etc., etc. And then I even had a grandiose idea, if I had stayed a little bit longer, dredge the river Niger into Abuja. It can be done. Canal. It has been done before. There is a canal right now that runs about 1,000 kilometers in China, and it was built about almost 100 to 200 years ago by people like us. Imagine, building a canal from Lokoja, traversing all up to, let's say, the central business, and then it goes round, and imagine what you can see, waterfront properties, irrigation activities, freighting. So these are the vision that we want our young people to carry. And you're even more fortunate because things are a little bit much easier now, even though they are a little bit trickier. Because recently I decided to write a paper. I have not written an academic paper for a long time. I was also a university teacher about 30 years ago. I got my PhD 33 years ago. So, as I was writing, using the old format, for some of you that are in academia here, footnote, referencing, I realized that the computer is, these days, it's just a touch of the button when you finish, and it will annotate for you. It will just do all those things for you. Before we have to do it manually, and I did it manually, seriously, but I called one of my kids, I said, how do they do this thing now? And my daughter was showing me. So these are the challenges that you have. We are even now in the age of AI. When you see things these days, either graphically done or written, you don't know which one is which. Is it the competence of the person doing it, or is he aided, or is she aided by extraterrestrial force? So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the moment is now for young people. Go out there, and I want to conclude, since my vocation has turned from academia to being an educationist and administrator to politics. Siyasa. Don't run away from it, because if you do, the incompetent will occupy those positions. And don't even think it's only running for office that is politics. It's not. Belonging to the political party is also politics. It's very important. Get active. Don't say, no, I'm not that siyasa. I don't like politics. Because then, if you don't participate, the incompetent will get in there and they will take a decision on your behalf. And you have to live with it. So, but when with all your training and your exposure, you go in, if you want to run for office, so be it. And it does not have to be a big office. It can be a councillor in your ward. That is why we even get it wrong. With all your great ideas, for all the political parties in Nigeria, for you to get elected to any office, you must first get that ticket after what? The primaries. And the delegates at the primaries are who and who? Are people that are easily manipulated by the political godfathers. But imagine if some of you will constitute the bulk of the delegates at any convention. You will not agree. You will do it differently. But seriously, for those of you that are involved, you know that the delegates, half of them, or maybe at least 70% of them, are all folks from the lower ranks, Mai Shayi, Mai Saida Buredi, tomato seller. So it's easy for the godfather to sit with them, say, I hide them in a hotel. And then when they are in Eagle Square, he brings them and say, vote for this person. They don't care, and then give them money. So that is the first step. Get involved politically. This country, we are at a threshold. Personally, I feel that Nigeria is a tipping point. Have you read that book by, is it Michael McDowell or something, The Tipping Point? Because every country has some thing that will show you that there's progress is happening. I work for this administration as an advisor, and I've been part of government before several times, and I can tell you, in spite of the criticisms, there are a lot of magical things that are happening. To raise the foreign reserves of our country within 2 years to 45 billion or so, from almost 3 when he came, he found, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu found about less than 10 billion in our reserves. Imagine, if we can attain 100 billion in the next 5 to 6 years. That is why for people who travel or use transaction in foreign currency, it's easier these days. You go, your card is not declined anymore when you travel or when you pay school fees. It's easy because then you have built reserves that gives confidence. So on and so forth. Even these projects that look a little bit confusing, they are milestones, they are visionary. The coastal highway, I'm one fan of it, really, to be honest with you, because it will open corridors, and it is the first in Africa, I think. It's just like our Abuja. Believe it or not, Nigerians were a little bit too hard on ourselves. Abuja is less than 50 years old. I think it's this year that Abuja will be 50 years old. 50 years old to build a city like this. By us. Functional city. That is why every Nigerian once he comes here, does not want to leave. Imagine if we are focused, we could have built about 3 or 4 cities like this, just like China does. When you go to China, you find like this, they will say, okay, in the next 5 years, we will replicate Abuja in 5 or 3 places. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again, accept my apology for coming late. I wish you a very fruitful deliberations and pray that you will